Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. What you're about to hear is Farra-Con 911. Okay? Hold on, brothers and sisters, 1 second here. Okay, yes. Farra-Con 911. And if you notice, okay, 1 second here, brothers and sisters, I'm going to check something. Make sure my sound, everything's okay. 1 second here. Make sure the sound is fine. Okay, that's good. Again, what you're going to notice here, he speaks on 911. This is 2001 after 911 occurred. There's a lot of things that happened since then. And so, that's for you to, it's capable of using logic and reason. First of all, 911, the first immediate reaction, he's going to, he's going to respond to the immediate reaction here. But you understand what's going on here. Okay, now, and as time passed on, right, after everybody looked into it and everything, it turns out that 911 wasn't even a Sunni Arabic response. It wasn't their event. Turns out it was a false flag situation. And what false flag means, you know, um, it's an operation by someone else, but they put someone else's flag on it, right? So it turns out this was a false Israel operation, but they put Arab flag on it because they want America to go at war in the Middle East. This was something they set up. And so to get America to actually, because remember that Wesley Clark thing, they want to attack all these different countries, to take down all these different countries, because they want to take, I talked about that in the dilemma, how they wanted to get control of the Middle East. And so they couldn't do it, say, when America going to start attacking these countries in the Middle East, right? 2001. It already had Iraq going, right? And and the thing is that, they got, that whole thing was set up. And they got Bush Senior, right? But he wouldn't go any further. He took Iraq, and he wouldn't go any further than that. They wanted this thing to keep going. So they got Bush Jr., right, come in, and they had this 911 thing. And that was going to get all America riled up, right, to go and attack the Middle East, because this was, right, they hate us. So it turns out, because when they looked at it, and some things didn't add up, right? A lot of things didn't add up. Sisters. A lot of things just didn't add up. Mm. Because they attacked the World Trade Center, right? And the planes was destroyed. Everybody died, right? But somehow the passports or the identity of the people that did it, that they survived intact. They didn't get burned up or anything. Everybody was able to find them. So because nobody knew, because you couldn't tell who did it, because there were no survivors. So they had to rely on. So how did they know who did it? Oh, they got their identity. See, their passport, everything were intact. So yeah, well, it's them. Was they on the plane? Because everything on the plane was destroyed. There was nothing left. Everything got burned up. But somehow they was intact. So, oh yeah, it was the Arabs that did it. The Sunnis. You see, it was them that did it. Al Qaeda. Then on top of that, the destruction, the way destruction went down. Right? It says they learned how to do these things by can't come over here in America, and they learned how to fly these planes, going to American flight schools. That's what they say. But nobody noticed because they only want to learn how to fly the planes. They didn't want to learn how to land the planes. So nobody noticed that. So that was kind of strange right there, right? Nobody noticed what was going on. Like I said, nobody survived it, so they don't know exactly what happened. All they know is the planes crashed to the World Trade Center, and then they got the identity of the people. And then the way the buildings went down, buildings that wasn't even struck, exploded. So, well, how do those buildings go down? Because they show, you can check. You don't take my word for it. I say, I don't take my word for anything I say. Go check it out. The buildings just collapsed. I said, how did that happen? They weren't struck by the planes. So people are determining, wait a minute, somebody, this was all set up, right? See, because those buildings, I mean, the planes are hit, but they went down anyway. So it was set up, something strange about this whole thing. So it was determined, right, that this was a false flag operation, that false Israel set this thing up. So America get riled up and go after it in the Middle East. So we'll take it or leave it. Okay, say for instance that wasn't the case. It was the Arabs that did it. See, we're going to take both sides of this. Say for instance it wasn't a false flag. It was the Arabs that actually did it. This is 2001, right? Now what was happening in 2001? Remember, 1990 and 1990s, 1991, because 1990 is when Saddam Hussein went to Kuwait. Remember, Saddam Hussein was fighting Iran for America for 8 years. And they was getting this documented fact. They was getting the chemical weapons, everything else to fight the Iranians. But he wasn't successful in doing that. And then all the Arab countries was helping him because remember, Iran is not Arab. And they was helping Saddam Hussein to go to war. Because he's the most powerful one in the Middle East, they say. And they was helping him go to war. And so he carried a big war debt, right? Fighting this war. So after the war was over, he was successful at it, right? Like I say, he carried his war debt. So, and so, like the countries, they wanted their money back. But he said he was fighting for them. See, he said, wait, hold on. I was fighting, and y'all was supposed to support me. Now, it was over, and I lost men, I lost everything else. Now you tell me I got to pay you all this money back right now. They demanded it right now. Now, Kuwait is called something called a tripwire. Now, if you look on the map, see, Iraq is landlocked only because of Kuwait. But see, Kuwait didn't exist before. It's something that the British set up. It's called a tripwire. See, you got certain tripwires. And you don't understand its concept because you don't go and check history and stuff like that there. But for South Africa, it was a tripwire. See, because it was a tripwire. It's two types of tripwires. One to stabilize, and one as an alarm. So in case of South Africa, it was a tripwire. Alarm. Excuse me, it was a tripwire, right, to stabilize Africa. But that's what it was doing. It was keeping Africa destabilized. Remember that the Europeans had control of South Africa. The British set it up to keep this stabilized. Whilst Israel was set up, that was a side It's primarily to stop out, to prevent, to nullify our vision. Elijah Muhammad was presenting. But the other thing, it was also set up as a stabilizer in the Middle East. Because if you kept it stabilized, America keep control. And then and then they said, well, we guarantee Saudi Arabia guarantee your security in turn, right? For the petrodollar, which you don't understand that's I talked about that earlier in another presentation. And plus, you're gonna give us cheap oil because so that kind of stuff. See, so that and that's why I keep Middle East all this stabilized, and then they can't because remember they got a lot of oil and everything they could take and become world powers because everybody depends upon oil. So they keep it destabilized. That would never happen. That's part of the thing, right? But in the case of Kuwait, see, and historically, Iraq didn't exist. It was just part of Arabia. But that was like a place where all the intellectuals was coming from. Iraq, in that area. What do they call them? Caliphs and all that kind of stuff. And so all the intellectual stuff was focused up in that area. So they cordoned it off, called it Iraq, and then to make sure that Islam didn't rise again, because remember that the Europeans they finally defeated so-called Islamic Empire about 500 years ago when they rose up after 1,000 years. That's the European history, chapter 20. Chapter 20 of the Angel, what you call Revelations. That's European history. They tell us that no, that was it. That was them. The reason why they tell you that because if you realize chapter 20 was European history, you really realize who they are. You realize who Satan is. And that resurrected empire was Abraham's resurrected Islamic empire that kept them locked down for 1,000 years. See, and after 1,000 years they would escape. I mean, the Quran says that they would be locked in. Did you remember? Dal Quran, if I'm saying it correctly, he locked them up, but it says they would be released, and nobody could stop them but Allah Himself. They released at Gog and Magog. That's Gog and Magog, two world empires, Britain and America. The only two European world empires. So there have been two world empires, European and Britain and America, right? They came out after 1,000 years. That's them. Anyway, so the thing is that they don't want the Islamic Empire to rise again because they defeated and kept under control for the last 90 years. They didn't want it to rise again. So what they did is they said, okay, well, they put tripwires all over the place. And that tripwire was there because that would make Iraq, remember, that was the intellectual area. That was the piece where all the caliphs and all this stuff, they come from. That's the problem. That was, right? And so they said, we landlocked Iraq because Kuwait was part of Iraq. The access to the sea. So they said a country to become powerful would have to have access to the sea. And so they created Kuwait, right? They blocked Iraq access to the sea, because that's only access Iraq would have to the sea. And so they said if Iraq started rising again, they would have to have access to the sea, and they would have to take control of Kuwait. You understand? And Kuwait was like under British indoctrination, right? So for influence, so they wouldn't be able to do that unless Kuwait just said, "Okay, we want to be part of Iraq again." They was down there, because the British have a lot of. Remember, Gog and Magog's in the Middle East have a lot of influence there. Britain has. They didn't want to set false Israel because no one was on board. They didn't want to do that. So anyway, so they wouldn't. So when they say if Iraq tries to take Kuwait, that means that they we can't. That's tripwire. Take them down. So what happened was after the war, right? Kuwait was demanding. We want our money. So wait a minute, hold it. We was fighting this war. I mean, come on, you better relax. You better slow down. We can't give it to you right now. So Kuwait said, heck with that. So they got a thing called slant drilling. In other words, here's your country, here's this country, your country, right? And you got oil over here. So I want your oil, so I slant drill. You know what I'm saying? I drill slant, sucking your oil out. And when Saddam found they was doing that, that's how they was getting their money to go slant drilling. He said, hell with that. He said, you better stop it. And so he talked to America. That was April Glaspie, I think her name was. She was the ambassador there. And he went to talk to her and said, look, we got to take what Kuwait is doing, because remember, Iraq was supposed to be an ally of America because they was fighting Iran for America. They said, we're going to go in Kuwait and stop them and take over Kuwait because they're taking oil. And the word he got back from Washington was, through April Glaspie, right? Oh, that's a local problem. We're not going to worry about it. That's a fact. See? And so then he went in. As soon as they went in, they closed the door and said, hey, man, you invaded Kuwait. He said, well, y'all said y'all had no problem with it. And April Glaspie, I think I know the first name was April, I think it was Glaspie. They didn't allow her to testify in Congress because she would have to say she told him that, and they didn't want the world to know that she had told him that was okay, because they set a trap for him. See? Because America said, yeah, and then all of a sudden they closed the door on him. Oh, wait, what are you doing this for? See? And so he was holding up the document, and they say, oh, man, look, he's this lie. He kept showing the document when every time they interviewed him everywhere. Here's the document. America said we were knowing now why they attacking us. See, because false Israel wanted them out here. So you understand that background? See, then they use all that to go after him, say because he was trying to take Kuwait. Right? You got that background, okay? So they're all in the Middle East. Attacking, remember the night, that's the whole thing was a whole set, 90 set up, all that kind of stuff, right? And then they brought troops into, to get Saddam Hussein, they brought a lot of troops into Arabia, which a lot of Muslims over there, Sunnis, didn't like it, especially bin Laden. Because bin Laden was a powerful family. He told them, you don't need to have people in the Holy Land, you got these people in the Holy Land over here? So he said, no, you don't need. So we can defend. Because remember, they were trying to say that Saddam Hussein was going to take Saudi Arabia. He wasn't going to take Saudi Arabia. All was a setup. So he said, we got to bring troops in, and they're still over there. So we got to bring troops in Saudi because we're going to attack him. So we need to set it up. And so he said, we're going to bring troops into Arabia, protect Arabia. So and Bin Laden said, man, we're going to leave it. They got pissed off about it. A lot of people was with him. Said, man, we don't want them here in our Holy Land. And that's how that got started, right? So I'm saying I'm taking a course where this wasn't a false flag organization. This wasn't a false flag thing. This was something that say the Arabs did. Say you want to go along that path. See what's going on here? Now Americans goes in there and they killed millions of Iraqis, women and children. So far, just blew them away. And they asked, what's her name? That woman. I had her name on the tip of my tongue. She was the Secretary of Defense under Bush. I can't think of her name. Yeah, so she said, well, you worry about the children being killed? I said, well, that's just the cost of it. You know, she was really nonchalant about it. Right? And it was all a lie. Now you got the whole Middle East up in the flames about this. They're all mad. I'm saying we're going to look at it from that point of view. So if they the ones that did the World Trade Center, see, they was attacking, come back after America, because America went and attacked them. This is 2001. All this other stuff was happening in the 1990s. So they mad, and they going to fight back. They want to fight back, right? So say they did it. Okay, so they attack America. Now America went over there and attacked Iran, blow the seas and everything else, and it was all a lie. And everybody knows now it was all a lie. They found no weapons of mass destruction, anything. It was all total lie. They killed all those people. Well, I had a name, took my tongue just now. Albright, Marilyn Albright, somebody up there. Anyway, it's all, they killed those people, and they blew it off. So now they want to fight back. They want to fight back. They come in, attack America. Say, for instance, that's the way it happened. Okay, now get in your mind. Now we got two. We say it's either a false flag or it happened that way. So take both in your mind. Now here comes Farra-Con. After it happens, he gives his speech. Now I'm gonna play the whole speech. Now you be the judge. Because first of all, he's condemning the Arabs. They're wicked, evil people did this to us, Us. America, us. Us. This supposed to be Farra-Con. The man's supposed to be speaking for the, because America said, it's America, Elijah said America is under judgment. America's going to follow America and all this judgment. God's judging America. That's what Elijah Muhammad taught. That's what Master Muhammad taught. But now, oh man, they're attacking America, and that's evil, and all this stuff. And they're evil people. And they don't have no heart. They're attacking America because of America's. He claimed nothing happens without America's, without Allah's will. So so they was doing Allah's will. But no, they was evil, attacking our country. Think about it. And the courageous firefighters and courageous police, same police and firefighters that burn us down, burn out. You know, they had a lot of cities that former slaves built. They burned them all down. Go check the history. They burned them down. You had your own cities away from them, because that's what Farra-Con said he want, right? They want reparations. So they had their own cities outside. They built cities out in the wilderness, out in the desert somewhere. And white folks come out and burn them down. Just burn them down. How many cops killed us? Everything. But no, they're courageous. They're courageous. See. So he's justifying America and saying those Arabs are so wicked. Wicked people. Yeah, we supposed to be with the Sunnis. Just read it on your own. At the end, they try to cover his tracks, right? Try to put a perfume on the shit he was selling. Well, yeah, but America's policies, if it wasn't for America's policies, maybe this wouldn't be happening. So you got to throw a little bone out to his dumbass followers. See, sick. Listen to him. Just listen to him. I'm going to go ahead and play and listen to him. So I outlined the background. You do it for yourself. But like I said, if you got, if you want his followers and you got that, you down in the emotional plane, then you already probably turned your channel already. Right? Because if you have no love for the truth, then nothing that I said is going to matter to you. Because all this is emotional. All this bullshit, everything he said, I listen to him. That's it. Because he's the one that said we got to protect America, got to defend America. America go to war. We're going to really you? No, I'm not. So that's a demon. Well, that's what he wants to do. Because this is. Remember, his father's the devil, but they don't want to deal with that either. The thing is, you're in the emotional plane. The emotional plane is the only thing that works is what makes you happy, what makes you feel good. Truth doesn't matter to you. Truth does not matter to you. It's like, pork chops, man, that stuff's bad for you, but man, they taste good, man. They taste good. Truth doesn't matter to you. And so I'm not even trying to explain anything to you at all. Because if you was about truth, Farra-Con would be toast a long time ago. Just reading the book of Exodus would expose him. So I'm just going to play it and let you, See, because right away, it's like, if you read it, listen to him, he's keep looking at paper. The FBI wrote this script for him. He's justifying America. They should be doing this stuff to know us and all this bad stuff. And some of us died in the World Trade, so all that kind of stuff, right? I mean, if he's saying that right now, what the fuck are you going to be saying in a minute when hell breaks loose here? When the fall of America's talking about they lied. What are you going to be saying then? When the economy collapses and Iran wins that war over there and America is defeated, what are you going to be saying then? Listen to what he's saying now. What are you going to say then? Oh, man, America's being attacked. What are you going to say? The plagues come. That Elijah Muhammad talked about. That says, what are you going to say about when they come? Oh, the damn plague, man. They mess with America. What are you going to say then? We're supposed to be in judgment. He claimed we're supposed to be in judgment. He blamed America. That's what he said. He'd be following back what Elijah Muhammad said. The fall of a great nation, unraveling. Well, it's unraveling, but all say, hey, what is it? I don't want, why are you upset with unraveling? when you see the hell coming, why are you going to get upset? Because it's coming. Because it's coming for you. Just think about it. What is he going to say then? Because that's just a little appetizer. Now, appetizer of what's about to happen here. That's an appetizer. That's nothing like unpresent trouble. It says Babylon's going to be totally devastated. And also they say, it says, doing them as they done to you. It says, we're going to do them double what they did to us. What are you going to say about that? Because I know I went to one of the study groups. He says in those study groups, we can't do them as they did to us. That's what God says. A command is not a suggestion. Command, do double on them as they did to you. So if they go all that way, it's going to be, oh man, look how they're doing this. Look how they're doing this stuff to these white folks, man, Americans. Just listen to them. I'm going to play it in the process now. Here it comes. Here it comes. It's about 30 minutes, 30, 40 minutes.
Farra-Con.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, we give Him praise and thanks for His guidance and His blessings to the human family. The greatest of His mercies and blessings come through His raising of prophets and messengers and sending to us divine revelation through Scripture. So we thank Allah for Moses and the Torah. We thank Him for Jesus and the Gospel. We thank Him for Muhammad and the Quran. Peace be upon these worthy servants of Almighty God. I am a student of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and I could never thank Allah enough for raising this man up among us to lead, teach, and guide us to the straight path of God. I greet all of you, my dear brothers and sisters, distinguished guests who are present, those watching by satellite in the various cities of America, by internet, and by satellite throughout the world. Words are inadequate to express the pain, the sadness, the anguish that has moved my spirit to come before you today to speak from my heart to your hearts, and beyond this room to the hearts of a nation grieved, angry, and in mourning, and beyond this nation to the nations of the world who have been and will be affected by this tragedy that has come to the United States of America. I, like millions of people around this earth, watched in amazement, shock, and horror the events of September the 11th and the unfolding of the ripple effect of this terrible tragedy. I have listened with great care to the leaders of this nation, political and spiritual. I have read the condolences of leaders from around the world who stand with the United States of America in this hour of her greatest national tragedy. I have listened and watched the President of the United States with his eyes filled with tears, feeling the pain of the countless numbers of Americans affected by the tragedy of events on the morning of September the 11th. I, on behalf of all the members of the Nation of Islam and on behalf of many millions of Muslims here in America and throughout the world, lift our voices to condemn this vicious and atrocious attack on the United States. in this very dark hour in American and world history, the greatest need for us and for the leadership of this nation is divine guidance. In the beginning of this creation, there was nothing but darkness. But out of darkness, God created light. And Almighty God makes us bear witness to the creation of our universe out of darkness by causing each one of us to come from the darkness of our mother's wombs out to the marvelous light of His creation. This is to teach us that no matter how dark the hour may be, in the midst of that darkness, there is light. And no matter how much despair there may be, in the midst of that despair is a ray of hope. And the Quran says that Allah brings the living from the dead and the dead from the living. For wherever there is death, there is also life. And in the midst of life, there is also death. We mourn the loss of the many who have perished in this national and international tragedy. We commend the firemen and the policemen and women who risk their lives on a daily basis to keep an ordered society and a society free from the danger of fire and crime. These police and fire persons should be looked upon as heroes, notwithstanding the fact that we have issues of police brutality and racial profiling, yet it must be understood that these police and fire persons leave their homes every day to do their duty in an ever increasingly violent society, never knowing whether they shall return home to their families. There's a verse in the Quran that speaks of the courage of those who run to the fierceness of the center of the battle. These are the foremost men and women of great courage and valor. These firemen and women and these policemen and women were running toward the fierceness of the flaming fire of the World Trade Center as many were running from it. Their courage, their valor, their sense of duty caused them to run into that building, not caring for their lives, but for the lives of those whom they were intent on saving. Unfortunately, many of their lives were lost in the process of this noble effort. The loss of nearly 300 firemen and nearly 100 policemen is not easy to replace. But I am confident that New York will rebuild. We commend Mayor Giuliani and Governor Pataki and all the city and state agencies that work so well to minimize the effect of this tragedy, not only in New York, but in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. The doctors, the nurses, the hospital personnel, the rescue teams and workers, and the many people who gave blood and did whatever they could to ease the pain created by this tragedy have shown the true spirit of the human being. Tragic events like this manifest the worst and the best in the human spirit. Our thanks to the news media who worked through the night and day to bring to us the horror of this tragedy and to share with America and the world the pain and the hurt of those who lost their loved ones. Tragedy, however, can be turned into triumph. Sometimes a wise, loving, and merciful God permits tragedy in our lives to encourage us to turn tragedy into triumph. Since the election of President Bush, this country has been deeply divided. The Congress has been deeply divided, and no amount of political skill or political money could unite America behind its president, but tragedy did. No amount of political skill could unite the Democrats and the Republicans, but tragedy did. No amount of preaching by all of us who preach could make the many diverse elements of society come together as brothers and sisters in a unified expression, but tragedy did. All of our preaching of the value of prayer and our preaching against the things that God forbids could not stop us from doing these things, but tragedy stopped us in our tracks and caused us to reflect on God, and tragedy caused the nation to bow down and pray. The scripture says, if my people, which are called by my name, will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and forgive their sin and will heal their land. How then shall we look at such a tragedy? The question was asked, where was God in this tragedy? How could God permit such an evil thing? There is a verse in the Quran that reads, whenever misfortune befalls the believer says, God is my patron, and to him is my eventual return. All of our lives are from God, and all of our lives are for his purposes. He says in the Quran, I give life, and I am the ultimate cause of death. He also says in the Quran that no soul dies but by his permission. Why did he permit such a tragedy? And even though the male carries the sperm and the female the egg, and from our uniting together human life is formed, yet Allah said, not mother, not father created you, but I created you in the womb. So he who gives life has the sovereign right to call life back to himself as he pleases, when he pleases. The Reverend Dr. Billy Graham, in his sermon at the National Cathedral on Friday, a day of prayer, remembrance, and mourning, said that many times he has asked the question, why does God permit evil? He spoke of the mystery of iniquity, written of in 2 Thessalonians. And in the same sermon, although he said he has never answered that question fully to his own liking, he partially answered it when he thanked President Bush for calling for a national day of prayer, remembrance, and mourning. Dr. Graham said that this nation is in need of spiritual renewal and revival, and tragedy has brought us to the beginning of that process. Why does God permit evil? Where was God in this tragedy? In the Quran, there is an answer to this. Whenever a nation becomes great and powerful by God's permission, as America has, whenever a nation becomes the undisputed ruler of the world, as America has by Allah's permission, when a nation becomes the only remaining superpower, having the power to destroy other nations and people by the tens of thousands and millions, as Allah has permitted America the power to do, and that nation then has a spiritual lapse and begins to sink into moral decline, the Quran teaches that Allah raises a messenger, but He raises that messenger from among the poor and the abject to guide and to warn the great and the powerful. Allah knows that the powerful will not heed a warning coming from their ex-slave or from the weak or from the abject. So the Quran teaches that Allah then seizes that nation with distress and affliction, that it might humble itself. For only in humility can the proud and the powerful heed the guidance of God, which is mercy and grace from Himself. Allah used this tragedy, hopefully, to bring a great nation to Him. I was born in this country in New York City. And though the pain that black people have suffered in America has caused me to be angry with the country of my birth, however, in my maturation, I know that with all of America's problems, she's the greatest nation on this earth. And in spite of America's problems, America has the potential to become the greatest nation ever. So as a citizen of this nation, I do not wish to see harm come to her. So I must lift up my voice and cry out, not just as one crying in the wilderness, but as one out of love who wants to see this nation avoid the pitfalls that have destroyed the great nations of the past. Tragedy was turned into triumph. Tragedy began the spiritual awakening of a great nation and steeled its resolve to overcome the wickedness of those who perpetrated this assault on the United States of America. It took tragedy to bring about what all of our preaching could not do. So even out of the worst evil can come the greatest good. This hour, however, is producing the greatest challenge that this nation and this present world have had to face. This tragedy and the anger that it has produced in the leadership and the people of America has produced for this nation and the world in which we live a trial of huge proportions. And in an hour such as this, we need the perfect and unequaled guidance of God. So in the book of Proverbs it reads, "And lean not on thine own understanding, but in all thy ways acknowledge Him, and he will direct thy path. This terrible tragedy must have an appropriate response by the government and the people of America. The perpetrators of this crime turned the symbol of the nation's aviation and technological brilliance of the 767 and 757 Boeing airplanes into missiles and messengers of death and destruction. The perpetrators of this crime used American and United Airlines that symbolized the greatness of America's majesty of the air to make these airplanes messengers of death. The perpetrators of this crime destroyed a national symbol of this nation's financial strength and architectural genius. The perpetrators of this crime struck at the Pentagon, the symbol of the military might of this nation. And that fourth plane that crashed in Pennsylvania may have been heading for the White House or the United States Congress, the symbol of our nation's executive power and prestige, and the symbol of the great laws that are made to govern a great nation. But by attacking the symbol of our nation's economic pride and military pride, indeed, this was an act of war. So the leadership of America and the people of America are justifiably angry. But anger is a blinding emotion that can impede the process of reasoning. Pride also is a blinding characteristic. The Bible teaches that pride goeth before destruction and a haughty spirit before a fall. We agree with President Bush that there must be an appropriate response to this wicked attack, but anger and wounded pride should not and must not determine what that appropriate response should be. I saw on ABC television Peter Jennings addressing little children and young adults, and they were raising very good questions and giving very interesting answers and statements. But one of the most important questions that I heard from the children and from the lips of the American people was, why do these people hate us so? President Bush answered saying, they hate us because we are the beacon light of freedom. They hate us because we are good. They hate us because we are the land of opportunity. And others say, they hate us because they envy us because of the way we live and the wealth that we have. Pastors and preachers and Reverend Franklin Graham said that they hate us because we are Christians and they want us all to be Muslims. With all due respect to our president and to these esteemed religious leaders, that is not the best answer to that question. I can speak on behalf of Muslims, and I must say that no Muslim hates a Christian because he's a Christian and believes in Jesus Christ. This is a mosque, and there are thousands in America and millions across the globe. There are 1,250,000,000 Muslims. And every one of us believe in Jesus. This book, Quran, refers to Jesus in the same language that Christians refer to him as Jesus, the Son of Mary, the Messiah. So to say we hate Christians because you're Christians is wrong. These are at best surface answers to what produced this tragedy. If the perpetrators hated us because we are Christians, they did not kill just Christians. According to the figures that I heard, 1,400 Muslims work in the World Trade Center and are missing or dead. The perpetrators killed black and white and Asian and Hispanic and Jews and Christians and agnostics and Hindus and Buddhists. This is why it was a crime against humanity. The wise of this world know that there is a law of cause and effect. Why are we angry today? Why are we mourning today? Why is America in the spirit that she's in today? This is the effect, but the cause was on the 11th of September. But what is it that caused 19 so-called human beings to run planes into buildings, killing themselves and others without a care for who they were killing, men, women, and children? Why do they hate America as they do? This is a valid question that demands from our president and our leaders a better answer. Those who perpetrated this horrendous act have lost their humanity and had become like wild beasts with only one thought in mind: to devour their prey. These persons, so depraved, only wanted to bring death and destruction because of their hatred for the United States of America. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught me that our universe is constructed on what the Quran calls the mizan, or a balance. That balance is justice. And that is why the symbol of justice is a woman blindfolded with a scale in one hand and a sword in the other. Justice is what balances the human mind. And whenever any human being is deprived of justice, the mind becomes imbalanced. The greater the injustice, the greater the imbalance. In a democratic society and in a civilized nation, institutions are established for the redress of grievance. And it is the success of granting to those who seek the redress of their grievance and having it done that returns balance to the human mind. The Palestinians believe they have sustained injustice since 1948. Whether you agree or disagree, from their point of view, they have not had justice. They have cried out in every forum for the redress of their grievances, and justice has not come. They live in refugee camps scattered throughout the world, and every day they live with the horror of what they suffer. So as more and more minds become imbalanced to the degree that life has no more meaning for me. For there is no joy in being free if there is no justice. Joy is the result of justice. And so out of despair and hopelessness and waking up every day without the joy of justice, this is what causes children to strap themselves with bombs. They care nothing for their lives, and they care nothing for the lives of others. They want others to feel the pain of what they live with every day. So some Palestinians danced in the streets, not because they have no feeling for American life. They danced because they wanted America to feel what they feel, what they have lived with. They are only a tiny minority. The majority of the world grieved with us. We stand with President Bush, the government and the people of the United States in their desire to hunt down those responsible for this heinous crime against humanity. But we caution the most powerful nation on this earth that has the power to inflict pain on any nation beyond imagination, that counsel from the highest spiritual sources must be sought by President Bush and the administration before they undertake this war. The President of the United States has sat down with the Joint Chiefs of Staff, his national security advisors, and indeed a war has been planned and is being planned. While the President has sought counsel from his military advisors, I hope that he will seek counsel from spiritual men and women of this nation who have studied prophecy. Especially those prophecies related to this time. I would humbly advise and implore the President of the United States, before he takes this country into war, to counsel with scriptural scientists who are among the Jews, the Christians, and the Muslims. There are those who have given their lives to the study of prophecy and can advise him, so that as we put on the armor of battle, we have to put on the whole armor of God, lest we lose. Mr. President, I plead with you that this war that you intend could trigger the war that all the scientists of religion and of war have desired to escape, the war that would end all wars, the war of Armageddon. The scriptures teach that when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, this is a sign of the end of this present system of things. The horrible and escalating violence in the Middle East is a potential trigger of Armageddon, and this is why the world must be interested in peace in that area, but there can be no peace in that area without justice, and it seems as though the political people cannot bring it about. So those who are religious scientists must rise to the occasion. The children of Abraham, Muslims, Christians, and Jews, pooling the best of our knowledge of Scripture, can help to solve that problem. We must be allowed to do it, lest it cause something that causes most of humanity to perish. This that happened on September the 11th could be a trigger. of a war that was predicted regarding this time. The scriptures warn us that when the horror of this war begins, that if God had not shortened these days for his elect's sake, no soul would be left alive on the earth. And this is what we face. We cannot march off into war saying hip, hip, hooray. We have to march off into war guided by the knowledge of what this is. And if we can avert war, we should do everything we can to avert it, because blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. I would appeal to the scriptural scientists among us, those of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, to be utilized by President Bush to help him to understand this hour from what the prophets saw and predicted. There are some prophecies that can be beaten, and there are some mitigating circumstances that can even remove, delay, or postpone the horror of judgment. But this will demand guidance from God, and it will depend on the choices that we make. Our hearts in an hour like this must be humble enough that through our tears and anger and extraordinary pain, that we reach for the unequal guidance of God. America, as a beacon light of freedom, has called many nationalities, many races, many ethnic groups to these shores. And among these are Arabs and Asians, many of whom are Muslims, who have come to this country not to destroy it, but they've come to this country and they rejoice in the freedom that they enjoy to use their skills to make a better life for themselves and their children. They build their mosques and schools so that they can keep in touch with their religion and their culture, not to destroy America's culture and her way of life. Most of these immigrant Muslims came to serve America, and you can find them in hospitals, in colleges and universities, and research laboratories, and they are aiding in all aspects of American technology and scientific progress. Surely they love the countries of their birth, but they greatly love their adopted country, the United States of America. And though some of these perpetrators of this horrible crime may claim to be Muslims and be people that speak Arabic, the American people should not attack these good citizens and destroy their mosques or beat and harass them simply because of the evil that has been done by those who may profess the religion of Islam. This would only make you like the perpetrators of this crime, who attack the innocent because of their anger and their hatred. When Timothy McVeigh committed the worst act of terrorism on American soil, the first persons accused of this were members of the Nation of Islam and immigrant Muslims, and many followers of Islam were attacked. And then it was found that the perpetrator of this crime was a white American, a soldier who professed to be a Christian. But no Christian of his denomination was attacked. And even though his crime was the most horrible committed up until that time, nobody said Christian Timothy McVeigh. They just said Timothy McVeigh. Timothy McVeigh's behavior was unchristian-like. And those who perpetrated this crime against America, their conduct was absolutely un-Muslim-like. In the Holy Quran, God teaches us, let not hatred of a people incite you to act unjustly. While this is good counsel from God for the Muslims, it is also good counsel for Christians and Jews and the President of the United States of America and the American people. The Quran admits that some of us will be hateful of others. But Allah demands that we let not hatred of any people cause us to act unjustly. The hatred that deprived these human beings of their sanity and their humanity is based on something far deeper. So as I heard Colin Powell, our Secretary of State, say that we're going to rip up these cells of terrorism and we will seek them out and hunt them down wherever they're found. And I heard a female general, General Kennedy, on television say yesterday, we're not interested in capturing Osama bin Laden and taking this through any court. We want the head of this viper and all of those who are like him. So these people are talking about violating international law, violating any law that will impede them from their pursuit. And if Osama bin Laden were presented to the American people on a slab, this would not suffice the bloodlust that this terrible tragedy has unleashed in America. So as our Secretary of State said that we will rip up these nests of terrorists, I appeal to the President and I appeal to the Secretary of State to take the courage to look at the foreign policy of our nation. And if it is our foreign policy that has produced this danger and hatred toward America, so as you go into such a war, we have to ask ourselves, what have we done to produce this? Not the American people, not the soldiers that are in the armed forces of America, but what have the policy makers of this country done to produce this? I have gone all over this world preaching atonement, reconciliation, and responsibility. And into every nation into which I have gone, I have not found people hating the people of America, but whenever they speak disparagingly of this country, they speak of America's foreign policy, policies that are made that the American people know nothing about. So I sincerely hope and I pray that the policymakers of this nation who have made policy based on corporate greed, I would hope that this terrible tragedy would cause the policymakers of our nation to look again at how we formulate foreign policy. There are two golden rules, one in Christianity and one in Islam. The golden rule of Christianity is do unto others as you would have others do unto you. As a Christian nation, this golden rule should be at the core of our policies, domestic and foreign. But is it? As Muslims, we are told that we are not Muslims, or we cannot be considered righteous until we want for our brother what we want for ourselves. This is the rule, or these are the rules that should guide policy. A better foreign policy of America would defeat terrorism forever in the world. I hope that President Bush and those with him will turn this tragedy into the triumph of right over wrong, of good over evil, of justice over injustice, and let not the blood of those who died be shed in vain. Beloved people of America, there is nothing of consequence that is not attended by the shedding of blood. That same World Trade Center, many workmen died putting it up. Every bridge in New York that connects the boroughs to each other, somebody died to build that bridge. Every tunnel in America, somebody died to build that tunnel. Death must serve the cause of life, freedom, justice, and equality and righteousness. So let this terrible tragedy lead to a rebuilding of spiritual values that connect the children of Abraham, Muslim, Christian, and Jew, in a rebirth of moral and spiritual values that could lead to the making of a new world. A world that ultimately will beat swords into plowshares and spears into pruning hooks, not just for the cultivation of the earth, but for the cultivation of every living human being on this earth, so that never again will men be so depraved that they will do what was done on September the 11th, 2001. May God bless the citizens of America. May God guide the leadership of America in this very dark and troubling hour, as I greet you with peace. Assalamu alaikum.